second graders. Today we're working on lesson 10, sensory details. The objective, I can use sensory details in a personal narrative. Turn to page 33 in your yellow folder. You're going to see a page from the book The Art of Miss Chu by Patricia Polacco. We are going to hunt for sensory details in this text. Remember that sensory details are things that you would see. They're things that you would hear, smell, taste, and touch. All right, here we go. Let me read through. I was back in California and I loved school. Hard to believe because once I had a lot of trouble reading, but not anymore. And I really liked my new teacher, Mr. Donovan. He was from Ireland and had sky blue eyes. Oh, I can imagine that. It was bright blue. A laugh that sounded like bells ringing. Oh, I can hear that. And a great Irish accent. I can hear that as well. He loved telling stories about his family back home, especially about his father. Seemed like he always had a smile on his face. I can imagine that. I can imagine seeing that. All right, so now I want to go back to page 27. Underneath my story sketch, there's sensory details listed. I want to think back to my own story and think about things that I saw in my moment, things that I heard, touched, smelled, and tasted. All right, so let me think. So in my garden, in my small moment story, I remember seeing plump, white, curled up creatures. At first, I didn't know what they were, so I'm going to call them creatures. I remember hearing plants moving because it was windy outside. I remember touching fresh, loose soil. I remember smelling manure. And I didn't taste anything, so I'm not going to mark anything there. And you may not either in your story. There might be one or two of these that don't really apply for your story, and that's fine. Fill in what you can. Right now, I want to take my sensory details and see if I can put these into my writing. Okay, let's see. Let me put this where I can see it. Here we go. So I creak, my knees cracked as I squatted next to my garden box. I wanted to get my garden boxes ready for planting. I dug into the soil. Oh, I remember talking about soil. I remember touching fresh, loose soil. So I can add that in. As I dug into let me put a little carrot, fresh, loose soil, as I dug into the fresh loose soil and unearthed, how can I describe these curled up creatures? Oh, how about I can add plump and white. Unearth plump, white, curled up creatures. Ew, what are you, I wondered. I don't think you're supposed to be there, I thought. I discovered several white bugs. How can I describe this? Several, how about plump white bugs? Just so I can describe them a little bit more to help my reader visualize it. All right, plump white bugs that seem to live in clusters. Out of my 6 garden beds, I found these white bugs in every bed. I began to panic. I needed to know what they were called. I pulled out my phone. White bug in garden, I spoke as I typed into the Google search bar. I clicked on Google Images. I saw a picture of what I was holding in my hand. Oh, I can be a little bit more descriptive. How about I had a glove on my hand? I can say in my gloved hand. And the word grub underneath. Grub. That's what Pumbaa and Timon and the lion. That's what Pumbaa and Timon eat in the Lion King, I thought to myself. Well, are they good or bad for the garden? I clicked on the photo and I started to read about the bug. Okay, let me be a little bit more specific. About the plump white. So I'm talking about how thick it is, the color of it. I also want to mention the size so my reader can start to visualize these bugs. I'm going to say they were about the size of a quarter. Quarter sized bug. I skimmed the article about grubs. Then I found it. Grubs can wreak damage in the vegetable garden. Grubs eat the roots of plants which end up killing them. That's it. These buggies need to go, I told myself. How do I know they're not going to come back? I asked myself. All right, Google, how do I get rid of the grubs naturally? I asked. Beneficial nematodes, the article stated. What are those? I wondered. Well, let me go ask the employees at the nursery. I left the closest nursery in search of beneficial nematodes. All right, students, your job today is to hunt for sensory details on page 33. Make sure you have the sensory details underlined like I do here. Then I want you to turn to page 27 and add in the sensory details that you have in your story. And then go through your writing and add at least 3 sensory details that you can to your own story. And if you haven't finished writing your story yet, please spend about 10 minutes continuing to write your story.